Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today is June 19th and it is World Sickle Cell Awareness Day, and I'd like to do a little story time about my journey with sickle cell and also hope to raise awareness. If you want to know a bit more about the illness and about my journey with it, please keep watching. Sickle cell disease mainly affects people of African and Caribbean descent. However, trace of the illness has been found in Middle East, South Europe like North Italy, Greece, etc., Mediterranean, and also Latin America. It is a genetic blood disorder, meaning it can be passed down through bloodlines, so parents will pass it on to their children and their children later on may pass it on to their children and so on. So I will give you guys a bit of background about the illness and then I'll move on to the story of how it affected me. Or how it affects me. So my friend did a really good thread on Twitter talking about sickle cell. I'm going to link it down below, but I think it has really summarized it, so I'm going to read from it on Twitter just so it's not too long. So this video is not too long. Yeah. So there are 5 variations of sickle cell. There is the ASSSC, sickle cell hemoglobin E disease, the hemoglobin S beta thalassemia, and all these forms of sickle cell can exhibit the complications associated with the illness, but sickle cell SS, which is what I have, is the most common and the most severe one. Moving on to symptoms, there are quite a few symptoms of sickle cell. So there is the swelling of hand and feet, anemia, jaundice, kidney problems, spleen problems, gallbladder disease, painful prolonged eruption in men, bone and joint problems, serious infections, leg sore, high blood pressure in lungs, heart failure, eyes disease, and stroke. So going into a bit more detail, anemia is the most common form of symptom in people with sickle cell. Anemia occurs when there's lack of oxygen to the red blood cells. Anemia can make an individual very pale and tired. This is because the body finds it difficult to carry oxygen to tissues and organs. Another symptom of sickle cell is called the pain crisis, which is also known as sickle cell crisis. This occurs when the flow of blood is blocked to an area because the sickled cells have become stuck in the blood vessels. So red blood cells lives up to like 120 to 30 days, where someone with sickle cell, our red blood cells don't get to live up to that long. They live up to 20 to 30 days, which means they then curl into like a moon shape and become sticky and then get stuck in your blood vessels, finding it difficult to move around. So to move around the vessels, and if they're not able to move, that's what causes the pain in like your joints. So a sickle cell crisis can occur in almost the whole of your body. It mainly occurs in your chest, your legs, your arms, anywhere where there is a joint, like knees. Another symptom is acute chest syndrome. This occurs when sickling in the chest. This can be a life-threatening complication of sickle cell disease. It often occurs suddenly when the body is under stress from infections, fevers, and dehydration. So again, the sickled cells stick together and block the flow of oxygen in the tiny vessels in your lungs. So what it does in like your arms, it does the same in your lungs. Acute chest syndrome is one of the most dangerous complications of sickle cell. It's quite life-threatening and it has a record of the most deaths for people with sickle cell. Multiple episodes of acute chest syndrome can cause permanent damage to the lung of someone who constantly goes through acute chest syndrome. Symptom that I want to focus on is stroke. You all know what a stroke is, I hope. This is another sudden and severe complications of people with sickle cell. The misshapen cells can block the major blood vessels that supply the brain with. So another symptom of sickle cell is jaundice. This is the yellowing in skin, eye and oral mucosa. So yeah, sickle cell, they do not live longer than normal red blood cells, and they die rapidly, so they die quickly than the liver can filter them out. In simple terms, what jaundice is when the skin turns yellow and pale, and you can see like your hands are quite yellow and your eyes are yellow. My eyes are very yellow, and people normally say they can tell that they've got jaundice when they're not drinking a lot of water, but that's not always the case, because I drink a ton of water and I still have yellow eyes. So it's, you know, there's no black and white to this illness. The risk of infection is a major concern for people with a functioning spleen. Infection can be the cause of death for people suffering with sickle cell. Any and all organs are affected by sickle cell. The liver, the heart, the kidney, the gallbladder, eyes, bones, joints can suffer damages from abnormal function of sickle cell and their inability to flow through the small vessels correctly. Some problems associated with sickle cell disease are increase in infection, leg ulcers, bone damage, early gallstones and kidney damage, loss of blood, water in the urine and eye damage. On to treatments. Treatments, there is very little options. There is no cure for sickle cell. Treatment option for sickle cell includes pain relief, like pain medications such as paracetamol, ibuprofen, hydrocodone, morphine, oxycodone, etc., etc. So another treatment is blood transfusion. So for anemia and to prevent stroke, transfusions are also used to dilute the HbS with normal hemoglobin to treat chronic pain, acute chest syndromes. Another major treatment that is used for people with sickle cell, it is a drug called hydroxyurea. It's a chemotherapy drug, a medication recently found to help reduce frequent of pain crises and acute chest syndromes. It may also help decrease the need for frequent blood transfusions. The long-term effect of this medication, however, are not known. So my parents are both carriers, meaning they carry the trace of the illness, but they do not actually have the illness. And they don't experience symptoms of it, or they don't experience any of the severe symptoms of it. So there's a 3-in-1 chance that when you have children and both of you are carriers, that one of your children, or there's a 3-in-1 chance that they will end up having sickle cell. So I was diagnosed when I was 13. Although I was born with it, we only found out that I had it when I was 13. Parents didn't know they were both carriers until I got diagnosed. So no one in my, it's obviously a family thing, but no one really knew that this illness was in our family. So how did I get diagnosed? I had like rashes on my arms or something, and then we went to the GP. This was back in Germany. Turned out I had an allergic reaction to something. So then the doctor decided to run a blood test to see, to do like a general checkup, and they found out that I had sickle cell. And as you can imagine, my parents were very baffled and just confused. What the hell is that? Why are you telling this? Why are you telling us now? Like, it was a very, like, I guess, emotional and shocking thing for my parents. And for me, to be honest, I was quite young, so I was just like, yeah, I've got this. What the hell? Because prior to that, I never actually got any, let me not say never, but I never really had frequent crisis as I do now. But I was sick. I would get my arms and my legs and my hand would swell up, but no one knew what it was. So it was just like, you're sick. And I was just constantly sick, but it was not severe to the point where I needed hospital admissions or blood transfusions or anything like that. So I was having like small complications here and there, like having an ovary cyst and all of that, and all that was all complications from sickle cell, but I never actually experienced a severe I guess, life-threatening crisis. So I guess when I had it, I was young, like I said. We weren't really, this was back in Germany, we weren't really taught much about it. Like, the doctors didn't say, oh, this is what you need to do, you need to be careful about this. There was no rule book given, to us, basically. I say we because me and my parents, we didn't know that, it was a serious thing like that. And just because my time of being ill they weren't like really serious and there were no serious complications until I turned 16. So on the day I had my first ever major crisis, I was at my family friend's wedding. I was a bridesmaid. The party was good, enjoyment, everything went good. We then came back home, and then suddenly I couldn't breathe. And I was thinking, what's going on here? Why can't I breathe? And then from not being able to breathe, I started feeling pain in my waist, pain in my butt, pain in my back, pain in my stomach. I went outside to get some fresh air. It didn't get any better. I drank water. I didn't know what was going on with me. And to be honest, my parents didn't know what was going on as well. But we never experienced it before, so we didn't associate it with that. We just thought, oh, I wasn't feeling well. And the more like time progressed, the more my breath was going. I wasn't able to breathe. When I take deep breath, my chest was hurting. And it was just such a daunting experience because we were in another city and all my doctors were in another city, and this was a place not familiar to us. So an hour passed by, I'm still not feeling well, it's getting worse and worse. My mum then decided to call the ambulance. Then we called the ambulance and they were just taking forever to come, as they do. And my uncle then decided to drive me to the hospital. So then he put me in his car and they drove me to the hospital, and it was a student hospital, like a university hospital, and they had no idea what was going on with me. They immediately tried to take blood and see what was going on. There was nothing coming out. I was complaining about my belly, so they thought it was my they thought it was my appendix. And they did an MRI scan. I was never in an MRI machine before. I was just like, what is this? Oh my God, I'm finished. I was scared. Everyone was scared. I was crying. The pain was still there. I was just like, please get rid of this pain. Just talking and talking and talking. And then they decided to operate me and put a camera down my stomach to check if everything was okay. So they did that, and they found nothing. Everything looks alright, but I'm still in pain. And they were really trying to get blood, and nothing was coming out. They poked me everywhere, my legs, my arms, everywhere, nothing was coming. Then, sometimes I feel like God works in such mysterious ways that at the party, there was a lady who also had sickle cell. She then came to the hospital and started talking to the doctors like, you guys shouldn't play with her. This is serious. I've got the same thing, and this is how they treat me. She needs blood transfusion. Her blood levels are probably down, and she needs pain medication. So I'm so grateful to that woman that day that she was there, because if she wasn't there, believe you me, I wouldn't be here today, because the doctors were so confused. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know what to do with me because they've never had a patient with sickle cell before. And from then on, my blood levels basically went down to the lowest. I don't even remember, 40 something. It went down so low that everybody was scared. But the thing is, everyone was just scared. We didn't know what was happening medically. We just knew I was in pain and my blood levels were down. We didn't know how it happened, how it can be prevented. But like I said, the lady that was there, she then explained everything to them. Then they started treating me the way she suggested. So they started giving me pain meds, which then reduced the pain. But I was in severe pain for a good 5 days. And it's just the most horrible thing ever. But yeah, so once they gave me the pain relief, I was obviously feeling better, but my blood levels were still quite down. So then she suggested I needed to have a blood transfusion. So what they did is they scout for blood, like my blood type and everything, and then they got the blood, and then they gave me a blood transfusion. And I think I was there for like 2 weeks in the hospital, and I eventually got better, only because there was someone there to tell them how to treat me, because they didn't know what to do. And this is not their fault, because they don't have any patience they've never had any patience with my illness before. So as you can imagine, they learn it on paper, but they don't know when it's time to execute it on a patient, you know. So that was what happened. And yeah, it was very scary, very, very scary. And I think after that, we kind of understand the severity and the seriousness of the illness. So I started reading about it. I got really obsessed reading about it. My mum started reading about it, like what they can do to help me to prevent it. So then, because in Germany they don't have their own sickle cell department, they basically put you with everyone that has like a blood disorder, like the hematologist who sees people with leukemia, cancer and stuff like that. They also treat you, or they were treating me, because there was no sickle cell department. But yeah, then I was assigned a consultant after that. So then he started giving me penicillin and folic acid to prevent infections and anemia. And yeah, so after that, I knew that what I've got, it was serious and shouldn't be played with. And it's one of those things, until you experience it, you don't know like the severity of it. So I think after that, when I was 16 and I had my first crisis there, and quite like life-threatening crisis, my health then just went downhill. It was just, just literally, before it was stable, now it was just like going up and down. And after that crisis, I started having more crises. Like, I remember one day being like, I went swimming. I used to always love to go swimming, and whenever I came back, I would have crisis, like pain all over, and I wouldn't know that it was because of the swimming. Like, I wasn't educated on any of those things, And yeah, so one day I went swimming and I came back, I was fine, and the next day my knees started aching. I was alone at home. I couldn't call my mum, I couldn't call anyone. I was crawling, literally crawling in my house to get to the toilet, to get to the kitchen, in pain. And then my mum finally came back home, and she then said we should call the ambulance. I said no, it will be fine, let me take some ibuprofen or codeine, it will be better in a few hours. And this is one of the things as well, because where my parents grew up in Ghana and Togo, they've experienced sickle cell crisis around them, but you just didn't know what it was in terms of like the medical aspect of it. They just know people are in pain. And back in the day, usually when people are in pain in, like, let me say Ghana, they tie them. So they will use a rope and tie you to prevent, because it's a shooting pain. They believe that if they tie your body, it will stop the pain, obviously, which is the most ridiculous ideologies ever, but they don't know any better. So my mom remembered that, people back home, when they have this severe crisis, they used to tie them. So then I suggested, tie my knees and see if it's going to get better, but obviously I was dumb. We then used one of my scarves and tied my knees so hard that after an hour, I couldn't feel my legs. I couldn't feel my legs. So then once my mum untied it again, that was the most agonizing pain I have ever felt in my life. So then we then decided to just call the ambulance and just be like, you know what, there's nothing we can do. And then we lived on the 3rd floor back in Germany, or was it the 4th floor? Anyway, one of the floors. And the ambulance came, like the paramedics, they asked me to walk down the stairs whilst my knees were aching and I couldn't walk. They basically said, oh, there's nothing we can do and we can't carry you, you just have to walk and lean on us and walk. So what can I do? I walked down the stairs in so much pain, so much agony, and then we went to the hospital and they gave me pain relief. And then my consultant came to see me, and then he was like, from now on, if you sense a little pain, like you've got pain, don't stay at home, don't let it become severe before you come. And he was like educating me and like my mom and stuff on how to manage my pains and when to know that it's actually enough and it's time for me to go to the hospital. So that made my life a lot more easier. Whenever I had pain, I would then, call the ambulance and go to the hospital. But yeah, so then moving forward, I moved to the UK, and before then I didn't have a lot of crises. I just have little complications, little pains here and there, until from 2014 to 16. Every year I had a pain, and it was a chest crisis. It was an acute chest syndrome, and it's quite a scary thing because it's one of the severe complications that is life-threatening. So going through all of that, as you can imagine, can make you very mentally unstable, where you're constantly in the fear of your life. So but one thing that was good is moving to the UK, I learned a lot more about sickle cell, like, because there is a whole department for it. They've got support groups for people with sickle cell, which I used to go to, and I met a lot of lovely people there. And it's just, I've become so aware of my body that now I'm able to know how to look after myself and not prevent crisis, but try and minimize crisis, and also just be aware that I can't be having a chest crisis and lying at home and just thinking it's going to be okay, So that's one good thing about moving to the UK and just really becoming aware and knowing about the illness a lot more. And yeah, so in 2014 to 16, having those severe crises required a lot of blood transfusion. So I used to get a lot of blood transfusion. Yeah, I used to get a lot of blood transfusions. And I remember it was like June or so 2016, I had another severe chest crisis where I was given blood. And then I was in hospital for a good 3 weeks, and then I was fine. I went back home, everything was okay. Like 2 weeks later, I got ill again, and I had to go back to the hospital. And when I went back to the hospital, I was then told that I have developed an antibody against the blood that I was given, which means my body rejected the blood. So that is a very big deal for people with sickle cell, meaning I can't get blood transfusions anymore. That's basically the main purpose of this video. And not being able to get blood transfusion as a sickle cell patient, it's quite hard because you do rely on it when you get severely ill. So the reason why my body rejected the blood was because it wasn't a closer match. So in the UK, only 1% of black people give blood in the UK, and that's where the problem stemmed from. So now I can't just get blood transfusion because I have an antibody. So whenever I'm ill, or I'm severely ill and I require blood transfusion, they're not like the first option anymore, they're the last option. They'll try to do everything until it gets critical, then they can give me blood. But even then, they would have to filter the blood to remove that specific antibody from it, so that when I take it, my body won't reject it again. So yeah, that's like the main purpose of this video. That's why I wanted to make this awareness video and just encourage people to give blood. Not just people of color, but everybody should give blood, because your blood can save people's lives. And having been told that I'm not able to receive blood was the most devastating thing ever, because my mind, I rely on it so much. Whenever I'm sick, I'm like, oh, you can go into the hospital and you get blood. and you'll be better. But now that's not an option for me anymore, like a lot of other sickle cell warriors that I know out there. So this video is just basically telling my story and encouraging you guys to give blood. If you want to know more about how you can give blood, I will link down the NHS Give Blood webpage, but also you can contact me if you want to. I'll let you know a bit more about it. And yeah, just do a lot more research on it. Giving blood is not a complicated thing, but it goes a long way for a lot of people with, you know, life-threatening illnesses. And yeah, that's basically what this video was about. I hope you liked this video and you actually enjoyed this story time, and this video inspires you to give blood and also to share it, and you know, just keep the conversation going about sickle cell. And yeah, just educate
this now, fam. This ain't a minor pain, it's the kind of pain that you don't hear about. So hear me out. From as young as 5, getting rushed to the hospital, I still remember clearly. Wow, I can still hear the screams, still hear the shouts. Blue lights and ambulance noises, wheelchair and oxygen mask. I got to be daft if I can to avoid it. Can't handle the voices telling me calm down, but don't know the pain. Looks everywhere, you don't know the shame. Sickle cell anemia, if you don't know, you will know today. Sharp pain in my arms and legs, feet, palms and chest, calves and head. Breathing levels decreasing, feeling like my pulse at an end. Still air in my lungs, I must breathe. Feels like no one's here, it's just me. I'm in a room full of people, yet no one feels pain but me. This feeling's insane, trust me. Wish you could feel my pain.